Hello everyone. So I think to start off with, it would be worth thinking how we summarise the kind of well-being phenomenon. The other panellists might see it differently, but how I would characterise it is that there is a overall kind of emphasis on cultivating positive emotions. So kind of being calm, being relaxed, being joyful, being grateful, and a kind of a turning away or a distracting from more negative emotions like anxiety or stress or guilt or shame or those kind of things. And that this is always done kind of via the self. So you will hear lots of terms like self-love, self-care, self-actualization, and so on. I don't necessarily think that this is a bad message. I think there's something good in it. We all do a level of self-care. We should be doing some level of self-care. And certainly in my job as a psychiatric nurse, I've met people whose self-care or self-regard is absolutely at rock bottom, and they really could do with some, TLC and some wellness and having taken some time out for themselves. I guess my concern with it is that these messages of wellness and well-being and attending to your mental health is that they are being put out on social media or out in the culture at large in a very indiscriminate way. So we often get quite, reasonable ideas kind of diluted down, packaged into a kind of platitude, and they're just sort of pushed out to everyone. Wellness or self-care might be right for somebody who is working a really high-powered job and then goes home and looks after their kids and burning the candle at both ends and never does any, never has any time out for themselves. Maybe for them, setting some time aside to look after themselves and hearing that message from a friend or a therapist would be useful. But for a teenage girl who's maybe socially anxious and she doesn't want to go out and she's got an event she's going to go to, but she's thinking of cancelling it because it's making her stressed, having a message as well, just go and have a bath and listen to some relaxation music, that wouldn't be the right message. The right message for her might be to actually challenge herself and do something that doesn't feel good. And my worry with this is that all these kind of messages that are being put out into the stratosphere, it means that nobody really benefits and that we all kind of we just all stop listening to it, and that's kind of my worry. And I think that if we think about the question about the wellbeing industry, I guess that would draw us on to the second point, that this is an industry. Trillions of pounds is spent on wellness. And I think what that means is that we see a shift away from, my line of work in mental health is seeing people who are genuinely in real need, who are patients, and actually seeing people more now as customers. And then you have YouTubers, influencers, therapists that are now geared towards giving the customer what they want. And of course, that would be what the customer wants to hear. So it's kind of a turning away from challenging yourself or for the therapist to challenge the person in need. And it all becomes very kind of nicey. And I don't necessarily get the sense that is helping us long term. So I when I see all this kind of wellness stuff, I think what therapy is actually happening here, and I sometimes think it's good old-fashioned retail therapy. That's what it seems to me to be. It's a rhetorical question, but I guess I'd wonder how many people in this room have bought themselves or bought someone else or have received one of those kind of relaxation candles that are nicely scented, and and how many people, again, I would ask after that, have actually benefited from one of those candles. Has your mental health been really improved? Or if you from a wellness candle. So you have all of this stuff, candles, spa days, face packs, yoga, mindfulness journals, bath salts, lavender oils. I don't, that's fine. I don't think it's nothing terrible about those things, and they can have their uses. But I sometimes think that the joy that a lot of people get from these things is in the buying of them, and the sort of fantasy that if they buy enough of this stuff, it will make them feel happier. And it is, sometimes, big business feeds off of that, and it can be a bit of a lie that this is how the path to happiness. And of course, that would lead on to that this very much becomes a lifestyle that is marketed to the wealthy, and that's another problem I have with it. If you see people and have wellness Instagrams, they're kind of on wellness retreats and they're doing yoga, And it's, it's a lot of money spent on it, and it becomes a kind of a status symbol, actually. So there's kind of wellness, and there's like wellness signaling, or happiness and happiness signaling. So you see all these lovely pictures of people doing their yoga, and I actually don't think it brings about much wellness in them or other people, because it just cultivates feelings of competitiveness and envy and, wanting to have more money and wanting to look happy. And that makes us unhappy. So that's another problem I have with it. And of course, alongside that, there's a tendency for it to become a bit perfectionistic and a bit obsessive. So yes, ideas about getting the right amount of sleep and having a balanced diet and doing exercise, these are all important. But I think within the wellness industry, there's a kind of a ever increasingly niche amount of ways to slightly improve on these things, and it has a kind of diminishing returns to it. A lot of this stuff is kind of obvious. It's not always obvious to everyone, so that's fine, and we need to help those people. But you do see a lot of wealthy, affluent people buying gadgets, buying into all sorts of things to just slightly improve their diet or to make sure their diet is perfectly balanced. And I just don't think that's helpful for them or anyone, really. And I guess I'd want to finish on just a sort of final point, was that when I was during my nursing career, I used to work with a DBT therapist who was very good, and she used to do all the kind of breathing techniques and a dialectical behavioural therapist. It's a bit like CBT. But she used to do, kind of mindfulness and relaxation, and it was benefited a lot of people. And she was quite into wellness and so on. But I kind of noticed was that although she could help people, she seemed to benefit from it more than the people she was helping. And I guess I also found that as a nurse, I would find that when I was helping someone, if I was doing kind of therapy with someone, I could see that certain therapies helped them, but I would come away feeling wonderful, because I'd think, gosh, it's so nice to help someone, to see that they are more relaxed, after having spoken to you. And I think what I learned from that, that real happiness and wellness is actually comes when you put yourself to the side and you focus on someone else. It's a wonderful feeling. And I think that or loving, it doesn't have to be through kind of nursing or doing a job, just helping a friend or your partner or something. It's actually when you put yourself to the side that you feel good. And I guess that is what I think is really missing from our current well-being mental health phenomenon that we're in, that there's a lot of emphasis on the self, and I don't think that that's where happiness necessarily lies long term. So,